Hey everybody, welcome back to another all-new X's for podcast. Oh, I said the wrong intro. It's all good. I'm Nico.
And I'm TK.
And this is, of course, like I just said, X's for podcast, your premiere show for covering Marvel and DC books as they come out every Wednesday. We love doing it. We always have the best time. And I expect today to be no different. We have quite the fun docket ahead of us today.
And this is a bit of a unique one because we literally have not said word one to each other in the group chat about comics this week. Usually we get the books done a couple hours early. You know, some days we do it we broadcast on a Thursday, so we read them all on Wednesday, and we have a little bit of a gib gab and get some initial thoughts to each other out in the group chat. Today's not one of those days. I don't know a single thing that you thought about anything that we read today, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah, no, just kind of gonna jump into it. And one of the things that I think is really exciting is that we're not just covering some new books like Exceptional X-Men #1, Trinity Special World's Finest #1. We'll also be taking a look at sort of like the breadth of what's going on with Absolute Power and the Ultimate Universe, which is, for me, a big catch-up project for both, but I was really excited to do it, had a really good time. But as always, I do love to start things off with a little bit of LOL news, especially this week from Monsieur Brevoort. Tom Brevoort said on his Substack, which I believe is not descriptive of it by prefix, he said that in 2025, you will see a big anniversary celebration for the Giant Size X-Men. Yeah, I mean, I'd be really excited to see that because there is certainly no good big excitement that came from these Giant Size one-shots.
No, man. What a cool idea for a project that was just kind of let down after let down. Yeah, I don't know. I did not get Brevoort news in my feed this week. I wonder if my algorithm has started to gain sentience and feel bad for me, because it didn't give me any last week either. I picked up the one piece of news that I had for discussion, our pre-book discussion, just from noticing QR codes are gone, man.
Oh, yeah. You know, I wonder how much it was a decision to make sure everything got out on time, kind of cut down some pages. Whenever I hear, you know, oh, no, that unique weird thing was on purpose, I'm always kind of iffy about it. I think that the QR codes were a cute idea, but much like entering your digital code from your Marvel book to gain your digital copy, people just aren't really willing to do that extra step. And the number of humans that I have to convince you can just take a screenshot of a QR code is astounding.
Yeah, even me. I mean, just because, I don't know, it's not very clear functionality. We don't really, I don't know. I have not heard any reason for it. And like, there are certain cases like X-Men #3. Sure, maybe you could say like, we're just going to do it for the first couple issues, but Exceptional X-Men, definitely, I think they plan to have one for that book.
And I think it's in there.
You think the page is just attached to the book?
Yep.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they stopped doing the QR codes, and I just think it's really funny because of the really, again, smarmy way Tom Brevoort talked about it. Because I think, like, I didn't love it. I didn't love the experience, but I think it's perfectly acceptable to say, like, yeah, we tried something new. We totally get that it was a flop. But, like, thanks for playing around with us. Hopefully it wasn't too big an inconvenience. And, like, we're not gonna, like, we didn't put anything in there that was super essential. So hopefully you didn't miss anything. But, like, here's a cute thing that we're planning on doing kind of just to make up for it. Like, we're going to put out a free little 4-pager or something that'll be at your con. I don't know. I'm making up ideas. But the fact that he was so like, this is actually a great idea and everybody loved it and nobody came up to me at a con and called me a fat asshole. So that definitely means that everybody loved this idea and I'm a really great editor and you're all just haters. Okay. I guess we are all just haters, but I also think it was a bad idea.
And I wonder what made it a bad idea, because that's like something I get really maybe annoyed about. I hear people say all the time that they want these things, but here's the truth. The reality is none of us really want to pay for trading cards in a Wikipedia world. Nobody wants to pay for trading cards in a variant covers where the covers are all amazing trading card variants.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to pay for a pack of trading cards that are going to wind up the thing that you fold in half to try and get your weed into your bong. So no one cares about trading cards the way they used to. We still love them. We still think they're beautiful. We love the commodification of art in this positive way. But like, I would be more excited about a Marvel digital game where like the more books you buy and the more places you find to scan, the more characters you accumulate.
Yeah.
Like that would be a really cool way to get me to kind of try and collect cards, collect stuff in a game. But these QR codes at the end, it can't be canon. It can't be content. I can't have to do homework to read the book I'm already paying, frankly, a little too much for.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's also like it's kind of a dated idea already. QR codes are meant for menu, like they're meant for quick downloads of information. I don't think they're meant to get you to a comic page. I just don't think it was a very good idea. It just really came off to me as this thing where like, Tom, an older man who's not as familiar with technology, finally went to a restaurant that has QR code menus and was so tickled by it that he was like, I bet all the kids love this. This is the newfangled way. And yeah, no, we don't. I mean, I like a QR code menu because that just kind of simplifies things and I don't need to waste paper and that's fine. But I don't like QR code content exactly as you said. I don't like it being canon. I don't like it being, even if you say like, oh, it was just a bonus feature, give me the bonus feature another way. It just felt like a really not thought out idea.
And I just want to bust in for a second to say real quick, timescales. Yeah, we support indie comics. We've been making an indie comic for over 10 years. Kid Riot, check it out. Kid Riot Comics. You can buy it. We've had over 1,000 pages available free online for over 6 or 7 years. Please do yourself a favor. Check out some great indie comics that we definitely support by virtue of making them. But beyond that, I want to say that one of the things that I think, and I actually do think it ties back into the Giant Size book is coming in 2025. I think they thought they could do something new. I think they thought they could just repurpose a word, that they could just make Giant Size check it. I'm trying to find the right way to put it. Like they thought that you could connect with the idea of Giant Size in a positive way by making it this new annual, because maybe the word annual seems outdated. So they thought they could repurpose Giant Size in a cool way, but I don't think it worked.
And they were also still doing a bunch of annuals, like the Wolverine annual either just came out or is just about to come out.
Well, but that's the best way to test it. Release an annual and release a Giant Size and see which one sells better with the same name. And absolutely, I just want to say to our amazing producer, Kevo, thanks for running the chat. Kid Riot didn't know. Well, he thinks you're super cool. He can't wait for you to check him out. Definitely, you're welcome. And we do hope you enjoy it. Thank you. It's all about like creating things for people. And that's kind of what we're talking about right now. Creating things for people, as we're talking about, whether or not these QR pages work for people or these Giant Size do or don't work for people. I think what we're talking about is how simply the nomenclature can affect how we interact with the media.
And, there were some of these I kind of didn't get into at all because I'm still not caught up on the books. That'd be like Giant Size Fantastic Four and Giant Size Hulk. But I'm looking at like two really big ones, Giant Size Daredevil and Giant Size X-Men. And yeah, I mean, I love an annual. I love a sort of one-off in and of the world, but not maybe necessarily drastically important to the broader meta plot that's happening at the time. I thought the X-Men Annual was very cool. I love Annie Nocenti. I thought she had a really cool villain. Everything about it was cool. I just like, and this is kind of gonna play into the X-Men book that we're talking about today, but like, I don't understand what the point is in this context, and I don't understand why it was giant size X-Men and not Angel Annual. I don't know, but like, situating this in this initiative of giant sizes, and when I look at all of them together, I can't find a common thread. I can't find anything that I can take away from it. I can't find anything that I can give to new or interested readers and say, like, yeah, you definitely want to check these out. I don't really think I can find a lot that I can say to, like, you, if you didn't read all of them and I read one of them. I don't know that there would be anything there that I could be like, oh, it was good or bad. Other than that, I don't know that I could say anything and be like, Nico, this is really the book because of blank.
I think as we continue to talk this episode, that's even part of where I find myself frustrated with the age of the non-titular sort of eponymous character. One of the things that we have really entered an age of is, even though this is clearly going to be called Extraordinary X-Men, Incredible X-Men, Excellent X-Men, whatever adjective they're going to put to that word, it's going to be Kitty Pryde, the Extraordinary X-Man, the Incredible X-Man. It really is about voicing into a character's unique perspective at this point, because we've sort of begun to think that no book can be for everybody. And now I just made this point the other day, where there is sort of a difficulty engaging with the idea of making something for everyone. If you design somewhere that looks like everywhere, it also looks like nowhere. So I feel like all of these team titles are vaguely kind of like thinly veiled iterations of solo books with extra side characters, so that you don't have to worry about not having all the side characters you want. But think about how often a Jason Aaron Wolverine book is Wolverine and Nightcrawler, Wolverine and Deathlock. Think about how often we see that in even like an Avengers title where Blade is the main character of Jason Aaron's arc, and then Robbie is. I feel like none of these are really satisfying my need for a team title.
That is a really interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, I do think at best you can argue after an arc it'll change, but it will always kind of solo in on somebody. Like this first X-Men arc is definitely just about Cyclops. It's about Cyclops rebuilding this team and being the team leader. And yeah, there are vignettes of, Temper talking to Magneto and Hank doing Hank Lab stuff. But yeah, it's basically about Cyclops getting his stuff together. This first set of Uncanny issues seems like it's probably about Rogue. A little bit Rogue and Gambit, but like Rogue coming into her own as a leader. And then, yeah, I mean, immediately exceptional. It's essentially a solo Kitty Pryde book. Not
which in and of itself. Why isn't it a Kate Pryde book? But
well, and I was going to get us there eventually. Yeah. But not a bad thing to zero in on Kitty, but your point stands. Like at the end of the day, and I mean, it even kind of goes into the secondary titles. X Factors really kind of seems like it's about Havoc. X-Force really kind of seems like it's about Forge, and I know that other characters will come into the central line, but it definitely doesn't feel as much like we're looking at holistic team titles.
And that's, I think, the danger of having specific totem characters. When you talk about the JLA, you talk about maybe the Trinity, and then you talk about a bigger picture. Maybe if you ascribe to a mid-2000s identity for the Avengers, you think about the Avengers Prime plus New Avengers. But when we're talking about the X-Men, I know that there are core X-Men, but like every group of writers has their own core X-Men. For Percy, it was Wolverine, Domino, and Colossus. For perhaps McKay. It looks like it is Scott and who the hell else is in that book, because it kind of Ileana. There you go. Maybe Quentin.
Ileana. Yeah.
There's this sense of righteous self-identity that is coursing through a lot of titles, and I still call that the comic book rock star effect. I used to attribute it to just one person, but realistically it goes back way further. You have to look at your Alan Moores, you have to look at your Alan Lesses. So one of the things that I am really eager to see happen is I'm eager to see how these books reset really quickly, because to segue to our first topic, that's actually how I'm really feeling more and more about the Ultimate Universe right now. This is not a cohesive line. I cannot put these because there's only 4 fucking books, man. I cannot put these 4 books in a once a month trade. I could not do the ultimate, $10 a month, 20 pages a book, 4 book thing. I couldn't do that with these because they don't paint a holistic picture of a universe that isn't 10 times bigger than 4 books. So I find myself individually grading these titles and having some really interesting feels. Like, as a Spider-Man book, Amazing Spider-Man is incredible. As a book I'm interested in, and without the trappings of what I know that these characters don't know, I don't care. It is straight up Tommy Lee Jones. I don't care. And then I think about what's going on in Ultimate Black Panther, which is just absolutely MC unification. I think about what's going on in Ultimate X-Men, which would be the greatest book ever if it was called Spellbinders and not Ultimate X-Men. I think about what's going on in the pages of Ultimates, and I think, man, it must be really tough being the book that is being asked to execute Hickman's vision without being Hickman's book. So I don't know. None of my grades for this universe are lower than a C, but nothing's higher than a B+.
Yeah, I think I'm in that zone. I think what? Oh, okay. I think I'm really in that zone as well. The thing I really agree with you on is the universe does feel 10 times bigger than these 4 books. And I love that. I love that it feels like there's so much potential. I love that this feels like another destination that things could go, like where things could go. But I'm not... I'm maybe wishing there is like some kind of maybe like Ultimate's world thing, like something else to sort of tie it all together. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I love all the books. I love this version of the Ultimate Universe, but I just think maybe it's not all coming together for me yet.
Part of that for me is I think the way that we're being asked to engage with this Ultimate Universe, one title at a time, it was like we got an issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, then an issue of Ultimate Black Panther, then an issue of Ultimate X-Men, then an issue of Ultimates. Now we're getting into this place where like we're being forced to engage with this universe in a really cool way. It's actually real time. It's like literally at the end of each issue, it says 18 months till this event, 17 months till this event, 16 months till this event. And so this beautiful aging in real time that the Ultimate Universe is giving us right now, I really think that speaks to the quality of kind of like the thing we're talking about with this book, or this bigger picture universe, where, yeah, you brought up something really great, TK. You brought up 2099 World of Tomorrow ephemerally, right? You said if there was a world of an ultimate world book, it would bind it all together for you. And they actually tried to do that for the 2099 universe toward the end of its run. And people, I think, were so done with the Ultimate Universe by the end. I'm so sorry, I said Ultimate. I mean 2099. They were so done with 2099 by the end. I don't think they were really here for it. When I think about this Ultimate Universe, I think Ultimate Comics Presents would be a banger title. But My concern, and perhaps even my question for you, is because we haven't talked about any of this stuff. My question for you then is, where are you with how many characters have been, for lack of a better term, kind of wasted where they are in the Ultimate Universe? I'm enjoying it. I'm having a great time, but this cannot be Storm. Killmonger's like +1 in some scenes with no real personality. This cannot be all Daredevil is. A priest who we never look at a second time. I just don't accept these iterations are where Marvel's going to be spending all of their time for the next 5 and 6 years.
If this universe went on for 30 years, I imagine this could be a great start for a lot of these characters. Storm, I think, is a really good example of like, yeah, it feels a little muted in comparison to how we look at Storm in the main Marvel universe, but I think that's maybe a little bit of a good thing. I also think Storm is really situated amongst other Black people and in Africa, and in a way where she is not the Black woman having to like dodge tokenization by some writers, and just like what happens in groups of well-meaning white people where you become the Black friend, balanced out with writers overcompensating and putting her on a pedestal. This feels like a much more natural and a much more, she can be the badass that she is without having to be all things that Black women need to be to all people at all times, which I think is a danger of Storm in mainline continuity. So if I felt like, you know, in 10 years, we'll have had at least 2 Ultimate Storm titles, she'll be leading a team, other stuff will be happening, and the Ultimate Universe will be going strong, I might be totally cool with where this Black Panther book is right now. Because I think we can't really trust Marvel to hold a universe together for 5 years, 2 years. I am a little bit concerned that she is just, Killmonger's +1 is a great way to put it. Matt is another really good example. If this goes on for a hot minute and we get Ultimate Daredevil, fantastic. You know, it was really interesting. We saw a brief glimpse in this most recent Spider-Man of Felicia Hardy, who is going to show up soon in Ultimate Spider-Man as Black Cat. And God bless you, Martin Coccolo, you kind of gave her Elektra's hair. Martin, you may just you may have one style of wild long women's hair. And so when I first saw that preview from Ultimate Spider-Man, before reading Fisk's kind of readout of all of the barons of the boroughs of New York, and the fact that Mr. Hardy is one of them and Felicia is his daughter, I thought what I was looking at was Spider-Man meeting Ultimate Elektra, because it was kind of the Martin Coccolo long wild mane flowing from her head. And it just got me thinking, like, well, we're going to need to get Elektra in the mix at some point. Like, the more you entice me with, and I think that's the thing that happened during this catch up. I got really enticed by the idea that the Ultimate Universe this time around is not, it doesn't feel like, okay, well, let's give you a new version of the 616 if we made it today. How would all of the origins look if they had started in 2004 rather than starting in 1966? That's what the original Ultimate Universe really gave us, but we were still doing a lot of the same tropes. The X-Men were still at Xavier's. It's just, what if Xavier's started in the 2000s rather than the 60s? This Ultimate Universe is giving me much more, what if there were a universe that had a lot of the trappings of the Marvel universe, or like had recognizable stuff, but just is a totally different thing, is its own weird hot mess of stuff? And what if we just gave you not new spins on old stories, but like just new stories, just a whole new bunch of stuff going on? And I don't think they always pay off that idea, but I think that's what excites me. I just don't know that I buy that they themselves will sustain it for the time it will take to give all of these characters and all of these stories their due.
I mean, I can really see that. I think the concern I have is the willingness to just throw everything at the wall up front. This is designed to be an 18-month project by nature, and I can imagine that they're going to reassess after that with whatever they want to do. All said and done, I think Ultimate Black Panther is trying to do best moments, and I don't know that best moments will last 7 years. I think the Avengers is trying to be, the Ultimates is trying to be reactionary, but it's not really reactionary and engaging. I love things like the idea of this She-Hulk character, but the regurgitation of so many ideas that are the trappings of a Cap issue, that are a Steve coming to terms with what America is now issue, it doesn't really go anywhere. Seeing Callus, Thor, and Valkyrie murder things, it just doesn't really advance the narrative. So I kind of feel like I'm 50-50. I like these books, but I feel like I like them more when I can read 6 at once.
I definitely get that. I agree. It tends to be more like 3 rather than 6, but actually Ultimate Black Panther is a great example. I think that was 5 for me that I read all at once. And that did flow a little bit better for me. With Ultimates, I read the last 3 all at once. Again, that flowed a lot better. Ultimates was 3. I read the first one and then hadn't read any of the others until today. And then Spider-Man, I do read weekly. And I think I don't know that anything changes with Spider-Man. I mean, the big thing, one of the big things to your point of advancing the plot, the whole point of this universe is literally we're treading water for 2 years. In a way that I know is supposed to be fun, and we're working in real time. So every month is a month past for them as well. And we're counting down to when the thing breaks. But if you don't have really expert, nimble timing, and even somewhat reactionary timing, even somewhat like, hey, we started breaking these stories and we started publishing these books and we realized this thing doesn't work, so we're going to make it change to number 7 before it comes out, which is not really something that Marvel is nimble enough to do. They're kind of too big a company with too many, publishing schedules and steps that have to happen to get things published in order to do that. So a lot of the stuff is planned out entirely. And if, as it's coming out, you kind of see that fan reaction is a little wonky, if you as a creative get a new idea, you're sort of stuck where you are. And so the books do feel a little bit like they are specifically treading water, telling us to just wait for the year 2 mark. And in the meantime, they are telling, I think, stories that really do pick my interest, but don't necessarily buy my full-throated investment all the time.
I think you could even say that about the newest issue of Exceptional X-Men #1. It kind of represents the third of this trilogy of #1 issues. And while my issues with regressing Kate, this is an astonishing X-Men level, nearly con job. And it's editorial. It's not any one writer. It's not any one editor. It's a bigger picture. It's a corporate investment in a character. But this felt unprogressive on a lot of levels. It read really well. I don't give the issue less than a B, but I felt like this issue could have gone in any era in a way that isn't necessarily a compliment. And with this whole thinking about designing a series more than an issue, I did not see 3 of the characters on this cover in this issue, or 2 of them at least. My apologies. And so I'm confused why they're on the cover of an issue they're not in. So now you're saying that this is about a design of a whole series and not the design of a single issue. Okay, great. We're designing a series, not an issue. So then why aren't you designing a cover to go with the series? Because if this cover is a big deal, it's going to be the cover of the omnibus. So now we're no longer designing covers to the issue, but we're designing covers to legacy. We're designing covers to legacy while writing issues, and it gets to be this overcomplicated commercialization. And so I find myself most frustrated with X-Men and Exceptional X-Men, because X-Men was trumped up as the big deal to look at. Doesn't work for me. And Exceptional is really not being given the room it needs to get off the runway from issue 1 for me.
I think I feel really similar. I love what Eve Ewing has to say about Kate and the sort of inside perspective that she seems to have on what she thinks Kate's mental state is and would be after Krakoa. There's a lot of it that, like, even if I don't like the post-Krakoa status quo, I really feel like this idea of Kate being like exhausted and a little bit broken works for me and is something I would really be interested in, even if I wanted a different status quo overall for the X-Men. So that was like a real delight to read. I did immediately notice the same thing that you did, which is like there is we're missing 2 of the big characters that are here, and then technically Emma is in the issue, but not like, not like a feature character, not in the way we would really expect. And I don't know. I found myself both really enjoying this and looking at a lot of the things and just feeling like, I think I had some of this too with Uncanny X-Men, where I don't feel like the ecosystem supports what the creators are doing. And even though there's a lot to enjoy, it just kind of is like, I feel like I'm dodging all of the stuff that surrounds what there is to enjoy that I don't think is great.
And I wonder how much that is trying to build a universe that fits the needs of so many people. It's even kind of what I was saying about the Ultimate Universe, where, Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men looks nothing like the hyper beautiful color work of Ultimate Black Panther, or the attempts at visual realism of Ultimate Spider-Man. And then to contrast all of that with the widescreen adventure of the Ultimates, I feel like they're trying to do that same thing with X-Men, but one of the things that they're, perhaps for me, not really getting the mark on is that X-Men isn't a universe, it's a people. And you shouldn't be editing the X-Men line like a universe. You should be editing it like a people. And now I'm speaking as somebody so deeply ensconced in the fandom that, I have unjokingly $10,000 in omnibus editions on the wall behind me, and almost every one of them has an X-Man in it. So like, I understand that I am speaking from a place of extreme privilege and overindulgent access. But when you're talking about the X-Men, you're talking about a people who are kind of emotionally tied to what they're doing. And the Avengers aren't. The Avengers are big screen adventure, and you can tell me the Avengers are a family, and I'm here for that. But the X-Men are at their core people, a peoples. And, the idea that you can just pick up after the loss of a savior, and Krakoa being the identity of the savior here, and like it's nothing. I just feel like it is where From the Ashes is missing that dexterity, because you really can't follow up Fritz Lang's Metropolis with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Both excellent at what they do, but they're not the thing to follow each other. Try for me again.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like there is this desire to say in narration boxes that we're not just picking up where we left off. Like, this is a really hard time, but it's not in the world of show don't tell. It's not, I don't feel like we're showing that it's a really hard time. I feel like we're getting told all the time that mutants are on the run, but it doesn't really, I'm not really getting that vibe at all. The Xavier's not being there and the kids not being at school isn't enough for me. The group not being unified as the X-Men gold and blue teams, it's not enough for me. We've been to versions of that before. And I think I would like it even less if it were like they were really, really on the ropes, but I also can't buy this like, oh, trust me, things are really bad, but also like Kate's working a regular job and is safe and relatively healthy, and Emma is apparently just like loaded and doing whatever she wants. The NYX X-Men are all chilling in the city. Like it's a weird balance of stuff, and I'm never quite buying any particular piece of it. I feel like now is as good a point of time, the good a time as any to point out that Kate canonically going on a date with a girl, which is kind of huge. And I loved the way that it was written, but also, I don't know, like this is where we get into a thing of like, getting on social media every Wednesday and saying, "Are you buying your books?" is not marketing. Sending writers out to go, "I've got 18 issues of this book planned, but they won't give it to me if you guys don't buy it and do word of mouth." And I'm not going to name the creator who said that recently, but it is from one of the X books, and it was really annoying to me. Not that the creator said it, because it's not their fault. They are singing for their supper. That they are made to, and that we're getting these mixed messages of everybody's getting huge runs for this time around. Gail Simone's getting 18 issues. And meanwhile, writers are still out there saying like, yeah, I got tons of cool stuff in the chamber, but you guys are responsible for making sure that I'm given the runway to do it. That's not support, and that's not marketing. And one of the most controversial and messy romantic relationship characters, Kitty Pryde, finally canonically having something resembling a queer experience, that deserves promotion, and that deserves marketing, and that deserves editorial support to not just be kind of one line in a book.
And I think part of it has to do with the way we react to art on multiple levels. When a band is up and coming, you join their street team and you do whatever you can to promote them. But when Katy Perry goes on to Twitter and says, "The reason my single failed is because you're all a bunch of fair weather fans," we immediately say, "Well, look at you, you horrible princess." And I think,
or you're too stupid to get the satire.
Well, I mean, by all means. But like the element of it here is we allow comic creators to say, this industry is tough. You kind of have to pay my bills. But we don't really allow TV stars en masse to jump on and be like, "Excuse me," which, by the way, when I say en masse, you don't all immediately hear Enrique Mas. Then you can't make out with me if that's the new rule.
Those are the rules, people.
It's necessary. And if you happen to also remember that he isn't just a fighter, but Kevy, why won't they let him audition for the Actors Studio?
Because he's Cuban. Boom boom. Kill Gonzalez.
So that is the answer. But when we're talking about this sort of approach to these books where they need to somehow fit a bigger picture of the X-Men, fit a bigger picture not just of the X-Men, but of what's being expected from sales, we look to them and we say, "Oh, okay, but they're a comic creator." We don't look at them and say, "But they're backed by Disney." And so when we go back to that conversation of Street Team versus, Katy Perry, I think about, we were just watching a video of clips of celebrities before they were famous doing either interviews or talk shows. I think I saw Gerard Way on Jenny Jones or something, but I did also see Sabrina Carpenter on like a literal like bunch of 14-year-old girls, like this kind of show, bunch of 14-year-old girls podcast, and she's just being normal on that podcast. And we look at that differently now that she is, her espresso. And I think we need to start saying to comics as a medium, pay your people better so that they don't need to act like paupers. Like, because that is part of it. These creators they're not mocking us. Bendis doesn't come on and go, help me afford my nannies. But I don't blame anybody on a low end X book being like, pay me, love me, choose me, pick me, because you got to do it to survive.
And I definitely really do kind of blame Marvel for making that a conversation that appears in the same timeline where the conversation should be like, holy shit, it's Kitty Pryde's first date with a woman.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, when you're talking about things that do those sorts of metric movements, right? Entertainment Weekly used to call it the Buffy Friends over under. You could either be the number one show on TV or like in the bottom 20, but really critically acclaimed, and get away with these sorts of things, and people would talk about it. But what I'm finding with things like Exceptional X-Men, which I wouldn't say it's Kitty Pryde's first gay date, but it's Kitty Pryde's first gay date in the not gay era, that leaves me thinking, where does this fit into that bigger picture? Whose job was it to properly promote this?
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't see it. Overall, I mean, I love this as a Kate Pryde. So that was the other thing. She pauses and decides she wants to go by Kitty. I'm going with Eve Ewing here because I think she's a fantastic writer, and I trust her. And again, this is one of those things where I also blame status quo and what happened with the end of Krakoa. But it took us a lot to get to this young woman wants to be. And I'm somebody who was called, okay, guys, I go by TK here. My name is Tim. And a lot of times as a child, people called me Timmy. And I really hated it, and I demanded they call me Tim, and I was always Tim. And then I got to a certain age, and I kind of find it cute and endearing when people call me Timmy. Nobody really, I've never, as an adult, been bothered when somebody tried to condescendingly do it. That rarely happens, and when it does, it's the silliest thing in the world. Like, I'm not somebody that can be condescended to and be like, oh no, he called me Timmy, I'm a little boy, I feel like a boy now. I just think you're probably a stupid person that thinks really basic mind games are the way to get to people, and it's just not going to happen. But anyway, that's as much as I can embrace Timmy. I've never had a moment where I've been like, you know what, it's Timmy now. And so I felt a little bit like we got this really great moment not that long ago of Kitty being like, thanks guys, but it's Kate. And we had the great Kate Pryde years. That's her name. That's what we're calling her. And I understand the beloved tendency of comics to snap back to a version of a character that is recognizable. Spider-Man has to not be married with children to Mary Jane because apparently everybody who reads Spider-Man isn't married, and they won't be able to recognize the character if he's married with children. But I don't know, man. That was the one thing that I really didn't love, and I notably did not love it.
So to draw a comparison to Doctor Who with a similar Kate, that makes me think of how in the Moffat era, when he reintroduced Kate Lethbridge-Stewart as an adult, he had her as Kate Stewart, and she said it was specifically to stand on her own professionally, so she wouldn't be compared to or draw from the title of her father. And now that Russell T Davies is back and he's taken back over the character, she has gone by Kate Lethbridge-Stewart in all of her appearances under him. and there's a little bit of controversy about that. So I think that for me is a very similar thing, because I think on the one hand there is, like you said, it's status quo. It's reminding us that is where the character comes from. That is the only way that we can really bring in Lethbridge anymore, since that character passed. It's a way of continuing to honor him in character and universe. You could even argue, yes, since her father passed, and since she is now like in her 40s or 50s, she stands on her own enough that she no longer has to worry she is being given nepotism by using her father's name. She is more honoring him at this point by going back. There's still arguments as to whether or not it was like anti-feminist to do that to her. And I think that is, to me, a very similar thing of when you try to change a character's name as part of character development, but it is part of who a character is. It's part of who many of them have been since they were first introduced. So it's strange. It's also very especially tricky when it's a character like, I went from Kitty to Kate. It was to make her feel more adult, but then the question is, should she have to feel like the name Kitty isn't adult enough? Is she not just herself no matter what she calls herself? It's weird when it was something she fought for, so I wonder if it will be something she continues to go by in certain circumstances going forward.
It is an interesting question. I think you bring up one of the best examples ever, which is Kate Lethbridge Stewart, because you really can point to why it's not great to use that name and why it's so beautiful. Why, especially in terms of honoring this great character, it really just means so much. But at the same time, like, honoring people and it meaning so much can also be a very private thing for people, and it can be a very private thing for like women who are trying to cut their own path. So there is always arguments to be made in favor and against. Really strong arguments, and that's why it's so great. There's those arguments for and against that are so strong, or so clear with Kate Stewart. And with Kate Pryde, I think the arguments all around are weaker, just because they're kind of tied up in comic silliness. But I don't know. I was bummed about this one in particular because I was so here for the journey of Kate.
Right.
And I think some of it has to do with the way you view Kate Pryde, and the way she came into her focus on the X-Men. For me, when I think about the definition of Kate Pryde and I think about who she is, one of the things that I consider is that she is in many ways the proto-Logan girl. Storm was the proto-Logan woman, the woman who is his equal. Obviously, Jean is a love interest. She's a different conversation piece. But when I think about what Kate represents as a character, I hear a lot that I have sidekick and lowbrow energy. Hear it a lot. And as somebody who gets that a lot, I feel like when I think about Kate, she demurs to Logan. She demurs to Storm. She demurs then to Nightcrawler, the entirety of the Excalibur team. Then we refocus to the Davis era, and she demurs once again to the leadership of the X-Men under the Davis era. Then she goes to the Revolution era, where she's kind of a wildcat, and she goes off on her own thing and leaves for mechanics. Totally cool. But then the first thing that's done as soon as she exits the mechanics era, where she's been progressed beyond that limited understanding of her ability to grow, is she's immediately regressed back to this idea of who was I when I was 13 years old in Astonishing, which is why even if Astonishing is a great book, it is a horrible piece of canon because its focus was to undo years of progress. So then we move forward to this, again, era of Kate, and we see this opportunity for her to grow. The idea of who her big people were, they're gone. Who is Captain Britain in the age of Betsy Braddock Captain Britain? Well, Rachel's a little bit more her equal than her better. So if Betsy is Rachel's equal, that gives Kate an equal ground to stand on. Think then about how that transforms across the other lines of her relationships. She's a little bit more Logan's equal than Akahiro's or Laura's equal. So in so many ways, she really has become this, I don't want to use evolved, but this evolved version of her identity. So to step her backward, it goes a little bit further because we associate that sort of nomenclature with the central idea of your adulthood. You know, as a child, everyone called me Nick against my will. Really not a name I like. As an adult, I really was like, call me Nicholas. But my sister has called me Nico. I've been her Nico doodle like my entire life. And so Nico is a name I love. And there's actually a really seminal queer film, Nico and Danny, really excellent piece of European cinema. Check it out. It's great. Nico just always really fit me, my Greek identity, my Cuban identity. And so I picked this name that for me felt ageless. You can be a cool 8-year-old named Nico, and you can be a cool 88-year-old named Nico. And I'm somebody who, for me, even the pronunciation of my name really matters. It has to be Nico. Like there's a kind of like a fake H on the end of the O, but it's very fake. This idea that Kate, this creature who has existed in a constant state of waiting to mature, finally reached that sort of exaltation of feeling equal to her betters and continues to hold that status, but has chosen a regressive name when she introduces herself to people. It could be part of a bigger picture to tell us that it's like being afraid of moving the barometer on the franchise's intent with the character more than it feels intrinsic to honoring the spirit of progress.
I love that perspective. I get what you're saying. This will be an evolving conversation because I really do like the depiction of a very adult Kate who is still not at her happiest and maybe not flourishing in the way she wants. A lot of times, like I think from mechanics onwards, there have been a lot of times where Kate has been an adult, but also kind of like doing slapstick pitfalls in comic like continuity and canon, like especially where her personal life is concerned. She's just so silly. And sometimes like I think a lot more of us can identify like we're fine. We're working a job. We're working hard. We have our head on our shoulders. We can do our thing. We're maybe not doing the best that we could be doing, that we want to be doing. We're maybe recovering from some past trauma. We're maybe just trying to get out on a date, but we totally screwed up the days and we're at the concert on the wrong night and we have to work the next day. Like this all feels very natural. So I'm excited to see where that leads us. I like this new young character that we were introduced to. I thought it was really the care package she sent to Kitty was really sweet. There's a lot of heart in this book that I am invested in for the future. I just, as always, my caveat is always like, I don't trust anything where publication and editorial is concerned. So like 12 issues from now, a year from now, when Nico and I are planning what we're going to discuss that Wednesday, I'm worried that or Exceptional X-Men won't be an option to discuss, or it'll have gone in a totally different direction, or we're just going to be subsumed with some really silly crossover event that's not doing anything for anybody. So as much as I love the heart and soul of this book, I'm just kind of like, okay, what's next? What's Tom Brevoort going to do to me next?
I feel like what Tom Brevoort is going to have to do is come up with a really clear vision for where this franchise is headed after this. One of the things that I've been the most concerned about with this era is that it's not about this era. It's about cleaning our palates for the next era. I really want to see this era matter. I think about that color era when it was like Jeff Lemire's Extraordinary X-Men and then immediately gave into like the red, blue, gold, black, white era. And I feel like this hat era, and I feel like one of the things that it did was it gave us nothing that got referenced. When Apocalypse showed up in the pages of Hickman's X-Men, he wasn't like,
I'm sorry about that whole Apocalypse Wars thing.
He was just like, no, Apocalypse as usual. You can fuck yourselves if you're being a canonista. And I just really think it's interesting that this is the situation they find themselves in every couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. And unfortunately, they don't have, like an Amanda Waller to point to that everybody can just be mad at that person instead.
Yeah, great time. Let's segue over to DC. And, I've been positive but critical of Absolute Power. I really enjoy the idea. I really enjoy what they're doing. I really vibe on the characters. But it's been a little darker than I think has been necessary. They've been torturing my boy. And I'm going to stop there, right? But this, my boy, right?
Wait, which one, though?
John. They've been torturing poor John.
Yeah.
And we got some really good John stuff this week across the board. That's why I'm repping my queer boy, because I'm really excited about so much of what we got from this issue. Number one, it turns out I think I like Queen Brainiac. It turns out I really enjoy watching Amanda Waller feel impotent. But more than anything, goddamn, I just think it's like tough because I want to say that Batman is Captain America. He is like specifically that older thing, or maybe he's Namor, but like there aren't enough of the classic thing. At the end of the day, the driving spirit behind the Marvel Universe is Spider-Man. In whatever form that the Spider-Man is. If Spider-Man is not about Spider-Man right now, that's fine. Then the Spider-Man is, Kamala Khan. Or the Spider-Man is Miles Morales. But like, holy shit, Dick Grayson is like, move me to tears, the greatest superhero of all time, bar none. Maybe I just don't even know what to say about Dick's performance in Absolute Power. Nightwing is just, and this is what I was trying to say about like Kate Pryde will never become Nightwing if you keep calling her Kitty Pryde. Nobody calls him Ricky Grayson. And that is so important to what I'm talking about. Dick is literally in charge and tells everyone in Absolute Power that the people you think are his betters, his superiors, they're not. They've been dispatched. And when you think about it and you put it in the context of that unbelievable World's Finest issue we got a couple of weeks ago from Mark Waid, where he said, you know what, if you think about it, it was never just the Trinity. It was always 4 of them. And then here he is showing us in the modern era that Dick is their equal. Unparalleled storytelling. Mark Waid is quite literally the Alan Moore that enjoys superheroes. He is just so incredibly dexterously capable of telling a story across 45 angles. I was the happiest I have been with a DC comic in some time with Absolute Power #3. I gave it an A+, actually. And I keep A+ so randomly seldom. But 9.8. Really, this was my kind of book. And the art was unreal.
Dan Mora's art is starting to make me angry because now all I want is every single character I have ever seen and loved to be drawn by Dan Mora specifically for a while. And I know I can't have that. Like his Cable, his Nate Gray would be amazing. His Madeline Pryor, his Jean Grey, his Emma. I'm annoyed. I know he's drawn some of these characters, not a lot of them, weirdly. I know he's done some Daredevil work, which I need to go back and check out. I love everything you said. As soon as you said it, I was really sitting there going like, is there a Nightwing for Marvel? Like a character who is who was been there the whole time, but was young. Like, cause you could say Bucky, but no, because Bucky died and was not there. Like the thing about Nightwing specifically is that he's Robin from the beginning, and then is present the entire time to do stuff like go be in Titans and go grow up to be this adult character.
Not like Airwave, who disappeared for 40 fucking years, and I'm the idiot who spent 2024 reading every appearance of Airwave because I'm obsessed with Hal Jordan no matter how much I hate the dumb ACAB, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm reading this dumb part of canon, and it's never gonna matter. It's never gonna matter. How is Airwave ever gonna matter? And now here he is, and now I feel vindicated, and every one of you can kiss my ring.
You deserve that vindication. I love this for you. You pointed to a great example though. Kate is closest or closer, and yeah, when we do what did we just do? Blood Hunt. It was a Blood Hunt. When we do Blood Hunt,
Bloodhaven.
Yeah, thank you. When we do Blood Hunt, Kate's not the person who's like, hey, the Avengers are down because Jed McKay created a team of people that each one can perfectly attack the Avengers, and they didn't figure out that you could swap this time around. So they're all out. I'm in charge. Here's what we're doing. I'll be rallying everybody. We never get that. Ilyana would be another one who would be close for that kind of job. Yeah, I mean, we just don't have that same thing. That's fascinating. We really don't have that same thing at Marvel. There are a bunch of people who are like closer, but they're not quite there. And then you've got like your Kamalas and your Mileses, who I believe can and will be that, but they are really young, all things considered. Like compared to Dick Grayson, they are very young in publishing time. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you know, if we're going to kind of try to create those parallels, I would say Batman to Wolverine, Robin to Kate.
Yeah. And that's why I think it was such a good example when you brought it up. But one, it's not Kate because even then, like Wolverine is way after Batman. And way after Robin. He's way after Robin too. And also Kate never gets to be Nightwing. She never, I mean, the closest is her, what?
I did not mean to have a reaction, but
yeah.
Wolverine is significantly closer to the Long Halloween than he is to Batman's origin.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me.
He's 40 years from 30 something years from Batman's creation, but he's 20 years from the Long Halloween. Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So like he's the Robin. You know, it's not Namor didn't have a sidekick. The Human Torch is the android. It's not Johnny. Like there's nobody classic. Bucky would be the closest, except for Marvel killed him and he stayed dead for a very long time. So when Bucky does show up in events and like kind of takes charge and is like, I loved Cap and I'll take on his legacy, it does not feel the same way that it felt in this when Nightwing is like, hey, I'm in charge because of course I am, because I am, you know, Batman's closest son. It just doesn't, there's nothing at Marvel that has the same effect. That's fascinating. I really didn't pick up on like how much that's an emotional beat.
Oh, you're not, right? You're not reading Tom King's Nightwing religiously for 2 years?
No, but I totally will. I mean, I'm certainly interested.
I didn't cover your ears for 1 second.
No, that's fine.
For people who have been reading this in 117, when they reveal that Nightwing 2, the person who's been filling in for Nightwing, is Bruce Wayne, I literally the most I have cried reading a comic book in like, no, the most I have ever cried reading a comic book in my life is the third Hellfire Gala when Rogue saves Xavier. I really think that the core of my canon is that Rogue loves Xavier more than anyone who has ever lived. I don't understand what this specific... I think if Kate is to Wolverine what Dick is to Bruce, then for me, Rogue is to Xavier as Tim is to Bruce. No one believes more in Batman, Bruce, the Waynes, the Dream. No one believes harder in that man in the history of the DC universe than does Tim. And in that regard, that is how I view the Rogue Xavier relationship. And I do just want to say that that's probably oversimplifying things, because father-son versus daughter to granddad is certainly not a very fair thing to say to the female experience. And I would never want to do that to Rogue. I mean to elevate her by comparing her to Tim Drake.
And I think it's not a bad comparison. I think it does speak to kind of some of the heart. Rogue is another great example, like maybe even better than Kitty. I don't know. You've got me really fixated on this. Like, we don't have a Nightwing in Marvel continuity. And it's, I'm just like stymied by the fact that that's an archetype we're entirely missing. And at the end of the day, I mean, I guess like my point is, like, it's not that Marvel can't have emotional moments in a crossover event because they don't have Dick Grayson, but wow, I mean, it's really one of the best moments of this particular book and of this series. It's just such a strong sort of, and the other thing that, like, as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, and it's really fascinatingly contrasted with Failsafe, with this other son of Batman that is a son in a very different way. And yeah, in a very making that face way, in a very unpleasant way, but like really is derived from Batman.
So I have had a horrible beeping, and I'm sure you've all heard it. It has been the hounds of hell calling for me. So I've been trying to mute. I'm so sorry to leave you guys on mute for a moment. But just to acknowledge the beeping, you are not all hallucinating it. No, we are not having a fire. Thank God for our producer, Kevo. I'm so glad you brought up Failsafe, because I hate him. But you know who I love? God, I love Jade Stone. And if you read Absolute Power #3, that moment of like, oh no, we didn't realize this, but our Amazos are copying the heroes. I like sat there and I felt so vindicated as an Alan Scott fan my entire life. I never understood, and like obviously it has nothing to do with the fact that he's queer, though I absolutely, love that he is a positive queer character. Also, I agree, tasty cake, 10,000% children of thalidomide. But I'm going to sort of escalate this discussion, because one of the things that I think is so powerful is we see so many Green Lanterns in this conversation, and then Jadestone is ultimately responsible in so many ways for the breakdown of the power system of the Amazos, right? I have literally read every single appearance of Hal Jordan through becoming the Spectre, and then I have read every single New 52 appearance of Hal Jordan. I have read 700 something appearances of this character. I am sorry, this is the funnest he's ever been. Mark Waid makes even the biggest bummer the most fun he can be. He puts Colossus in that bathing suit, and it is so great to see this like silly, drunk, fun Hal. And I literally spent the entire issue being so bummed out by this fun version of Hal. And then there's this moment where they show all of the female heroes of the DC universe, and I literally dropped my tablet when I saw Star Sapphire front and center. My girl, my absolute favorite. oh my God, Carol getting this moment, this idea that they are instead saying there is not just this limited understanding of who can be a good guy in the Green Lantern verse, but instead Carol, a Star Sapphire, who has always been so volatile because she's a woman, she can't handle her emotions. Instead, we're seeing her elevated and we're seeing her treated where her emotions are so valuable to who she is as a character. It really takes what's there and it pushes it so much further and so much higher. When I thought about the fact that this Hal is maybe the first time Hal has ever had Carol, his best friend, the only person that understands him at the darkest moments of his life, his favorite person to get drunk and have a stupid good time with, his favorite person to be in the cockpit with, they're finally equals in the DC universe. It just, like, it gave me this guy who has spent the last year doing the world's most intense Green Lantern read. Mark Waid really knows how to make a guy grateful for being a fan.
Yeah, I also, I mean, like, we just had to, he has no shirt on the whole time. And again, Dan Mora is just a really good artist. I mean, he's just like this idiot himbo who's running around with no powers, no survival instincts
Who
whatsoever.
wants a leather gun?
Yeah, he has no self-preservation instincts at all. He has no shirt. He is just running around being a little chaos goblin at Amanda Waller. And it's funny because you said, and it is true on the meta level of comics continuity and consciousness, that they are finally equals in this moment, but really she is kind of superior to he is because she hasn't lost her powers and she has her shirt on. So she's really in the power position here. And,
Kevo, you're finally getting your due. The guy who has kept his shirt on somehow. Congratulations.
You did it. And yeah, I mean, like, that is a great moment, a great panel too. You got Zatanna there, you've got what's her name, Coriander, and I mean, there's some really great shots.
Starfire, here. We had Raven, we had so many amazing people.
Who I was like, wow, this is unexpected. I'm sure there's some. I'm not reading enough DC to know everything, but Barda being there was kind of. Barda being there and being such a huge part of the whole thing, especially because they've been announcing a bunch of new God stuff lately. But it was just, and then again, Dan Mora just draws a great Barda.
Dan Mora has this way of drawing things that, like, and I am not coming for anybody, but I want to think about the things that make people really strong, right? If you need a really subtle slice of life moment, you want Aaron Cooter to draw it because, like, the way he's going to capture the lines in a face, right? But if you want this big, like, oh wow, Queen Brainiac moment, you want Dan Mora. I don't know that Aaron Cooter and Dan Mora trading books would necessarily always show the best out of every script. So when you have a book like Absolute Power, where every page feels like a cover, every page feels like a Brian Hitch splash, I'll be honest, I've had some reservations about the fact that this is just 4 issues for what is clearly meant to be one of the biggest crossovers DC has had in years. This leads us into All In. Guys, I am having an anxiety attack about how excited I am about All In. I am like... You're all stupid. Everybody who's like, I don't like that Batman logo, listen to me. Listen to me well. I am like the creator of Bleach. I think Maleficent is the greatest villain of all time. Listen well. That Batman logo is genius. It is the sexiest chode you have ever seen strapped to a superhero's chest. Let it happen. It's blocky and weird and looks nothing like a bat, but I really love it. This is such an interesting moment for the DC universe because I feel like, TK, there's very few big crossovers that are good to come in on because so many big crossovers pay off years of storytelling. I think Secret Invasion is to this day my favorite ever Marvel crossover. Ever. Nothing comes close. but it's because I had been reading consistently for about 20 years at that moment.
Borderline, if you did not start when New Avengers started and read basically everything that came out, including the Ultimate Universe after New Avengers, that's 2004. If you had not been reading for 10 years, 11 years, and reading everything, you're only getting half the story. Like, even if you just didn't read Ultimate Fantastic Four, if you read everything else that Marvel published except Ultimate Fantastic Four, you're only getting half the story.
I mean, I want to ask you, TK. I know it's not on the episode description, but I'm willing to pay you the words per minute here. When you read Secret Invasion, you had an idea of who Elektra was. But do you now understand the idea that no one, not even Doctor Strange, could tell that wasn't Elektra? Like a literal person who has no signature to even the most magical people. A person who can slip between telepaths. A person who is so powerful. People with the Dark Force have said, yikes, avoid her. Like, Elektra is one of the most significant characters in the entire Marvel universe. So when they said she was replaced by a Skrull for who knows how long, and no one noticed, and it's her body in that costume that we are using as the example of corruption across the Marvel universe, that transformative property is so clear and so powerful. For me, because I had read all of that, and that amount of New Avengers that you just perfectly listed, I don't know. I'm a guy who's read on and off the last 30 years of the DC universe, but TK, is Absolute Power giving you the payoff it's giving me, where I'm seeing so many things I love paid off so clearly?
I think no, but not in not in a bad way. I think it is doing a really good job of not making me feel left out. Marvel does not do a great job of that with their crossover events. I will just never stop saying it because I just feel like we all need to know it and acknowledge it. If you are putting the editor's note in your book to go read an issue from 1995 that you're not putting online, you're a jerk. You're literally saying like this footprint of this foothold of our entire story is something that you need to have loved comics since maybe before you were alive. And you need to have this book that we can't give to you. That's rude. That's really rude. And I would not be surprised if there are 2 or 3 references in Absolute Power that are to a thing that is that old. But they are not there. I've never seen a thing where I'm like, what?
Dude, there isn't a single airwave reference in Absolute Power that comes after 1987.
Yeah, there you go. Sure. But like, I barely noticed the airwave references and like, it's sorry.
No, you are in the majority. You are in the people. Like I'm just channeling Mark Wade's fanboy. And so
exactly. And but like that there, here's to expert writing. Here's to giving everybody, because it is possible to give something to everybody. The meal is not going to be good. It's not going to be notably good if it is homogenous to everybody's taste. But if there is something at the table for everybody, maybe it's a smaller bite, but if there's something at the table for everybody that will wow them, that's cool. That's an experience. That's you saying to me, I love this steak so much. And I say, oh, I don't eat red meat, but the lobster's amazing. And you go, I don't eat fish, but we're having fun at this table as opposed to just like a bland soup. Like, and we're all just like, oh, we can all eat it, but it's just this fucking soup.
Listen, the Olive Garden employs something like 23,000 Americans.
I mean, that is the other option. You just give unlimited soup and breadsticks, and that's, that Marvel, if you want to do it that way, stop selling the Comics Weekly.
What do you think Blood Hunt was?
Truly. But then stop selling the Comics Weekly, and it's a monthly payment, and we get all of them. And then I will read all of them, but you can't ask me to pay $80 a month for all of them, but they're made bland so that everybody will pay $80 a month. DC... and I think it's better that this is 4 issues. I get why it's not the best, but I think we're getting out of here quicker rather than dragging things on. I actually really I liked that we got a big climactic heroes fight back moment in issue 3, and it was obvious that we're getting to a conclusion next issue.
That
I
Fortress of Solitude fight in 2 broke my
Yeah,
heart. So
well,
I
exactly.
needed this.
Right, exactly. Like in the second issue, they already took us to the darkest place and made it feel like it had gone on a minute, even though it literally, this is the second issue.
And truly.
So I don't know, like Mark Waid got it right on a lot of levels. It's quick and easy. There is a lot of stuff for new people here, but clearly there's a lot of stuff for old people, or for old like readers who have been with this for a while.
I'm ancient.
I'm older than you are. And they're also like the crossovers are wild. I mean, I think that was the one thing I did criticize last week is I really don't think you can read this and not read Task Force 7, which sounds like it couldn't. It sounds like the least important title, but like to me, Ultimate Power Origins is actually, it sounds like you absolutely have to read. You need to know the origins of what's happening. It's actually really not great and sort of like is information you almost don't want. It almost is kind of too much information.
It answers questions that are better left to the audience to determine the
It is the whole Ron D. Moore, you probably had a better idea in your head for what the Cylon and what the inside of a base star looked like, and once we showed it to you, you were just locked into that. So yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed overall. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It is, it is things like I get how much more impactful the Jadestone moment is for you with all the continuity that you have read. But I had a lot of fun with it, having just read the one Green Lantern book that you made me read 3 weeks ago or 2 months ago.
Oh my God, that Alan Scott, the Green Lantern book.
Yeah, fantastic book.
All you
absolutely.
need.
Well, sure, but you've read more than that. And so like you did invest more and you got a big payoff. I read that, which I'm so happy I read, and I had a blast reading with you. But that also, like, for a relatively inexpensive buy-in of time and money, reading that mini, to get the payoff of being like, I know that guy and I can see that this robot is having a fucking moment. Like I don't know. There's been a lot of stuff like that where it's like for a relatively small payment of $9.99 a month, you too can have the time of your life reading Absolute Power. And I've had a total blast with it. And I am really stoked that it's going to end with the next issue. Like I'm really stoked that we're not dragging this on. So stoked that I don't feel like, because I will say there's a ton of great stuff throughout not a ton. There's a chunk of great stuff throughout Blood Hunt.
I actually want to say there is a ton.
Okay, maybe we'll say ton, bunch.
Strange Academy.
Strange Academy, again, fantastic. They're Blood Hunters overall, maybe not great, but they're the story of the Blood Hunters who will then go on to be in the book that is also called Blood Hunters.
The art in Doctor Strange, even though the actual Doctor Strange title didn't do it for me in this era, the art of Doctor Strange, unreal.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff, but it's so much more difficult to say to people, okay, so you're going to want to read, the 3 issues of Strange Academy. Those actually are really good, so definitely do read those. Blood Hunters, I don't know, it's kind of, if you have the money and you can pay just to read the Blood Hunter story, it's fantastic. But if you don't have the money, the other 2 stories that are in every issue might really be disappointing to you. Dracula's really good, but you have to kind of want a Buffy moment. And it just like, it's a lot easier to say you absolutely should read Absolute Power, and then if you really want to bulk up the experience, you're going to want to read Task Force 7. But then other than that, like, just read anything you want that is a tie-in, and you might have fun with it. That strategy for me really charmed me and really worked, and I just had a bunch of fun. And I'm looking at this, I'm looking at Judgment Day, I'm even looking at Sins of Sinister, and even when I think there's great stuff, I slogged through so much to get to the good stuff. I read X-Men, Blood Hunt, The Wolverine, Laura Kinney. I read all of these books that just weren't that great to get to the good stuff.
A Robe of Sand.
And I don't feel like I slogged. Even though I read basically everything that had Absolute Power on it, I don't feel like I slogged to get there, because the Batman issue was not 3 issues, it's 1 issue.
Oh, and that is the hardest part for me. Because it's not that just DC does crossovers, right? Marvel has done a number of crossovers the way DC handled this crossover. All said and done, yeah, Absolute Power #3 is probably my book of the summer at this point. I really had such an unbelievable experience. But that said, if you want to know what Nico channeling Terry doing Tom of Finland looks like, you should imagine me looking at the preview for All In. Darkseid is, Darkseid was. My God, I am beyond excited. I have not been All In excited about a DC crossover since Identity Crisis. That is the last time I was this excited about any DC property, period. All In looks so good with that preview, having that Absolute team. I mean, obviously, Absolute Batman, the most attractive man ever drawn, ever. But seeing the heroes on that image for the DC universe, where we're seeing John, we're seeing Zatanna, we're seeing Booster, we're seeing Diana, that is what I am looking for from this crossover. Obviously, John, thank you so much for being there. Hey, John Jones. But I'm so excited about All In. I'm so excited about All In that I am forced to relish every second of World's Finest, the Trinity Special, even more than I already would, which, by the way, this was hard because, I like the market share in the last 25 years have ever had DC come out ahead of Marvel 3 times. And this was one of those 3 times. This book was an A. This book was literally me and TK taking care of an adorable young girl who ultimately is smarter than both of us. I swear, perhaps one of the funnest, sweetest titles of the last 5 years.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I did no research on this one. Not out of laziness, guys.
Oh my God, did you know who Lizzie was?
No, I knew nothing about what we were doing. This was not a laziness thing this time around. This was I wanted to go in totally fresh. So that's an actually, and I who is Lizzie?
Oh, geez.
Is she in mainline continuity?
That's a really interesting question. She does appear in mainline continuity, but so Trinity was originally introduced in Wonder Woman 800. Wonder Woman 800 was this really significant point for the character.
What year ish? Recently in the last
year?
Okay, great.
Yeah, last year.
After the pandemic, even, let's just say.
Yeah. She was part of the, I want to say, Infinite Frontier wave of characters. Okay. Lizzie first appears in Wonder Woman 800, August of last year. She is a really interesting character because she, even to this point, has only had 11 appearances, which makes her really unique. She has appeared in Wonder Woman 800 and then Volume 6 of Wonder Woman, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. She is a fascinating character who the entire idea of her is that she sort of is the Trinity herself. Now, she has had a number of really interesting stories, but one of the things that I find fascinating is she specifically does kind of have more fanon than canon already at this point, and she's an example of somebody like a Miles Morales, where people just went nuts over her. And I think it's the excitement of this character. It's the kind of clever joy of somebody like Tom King creating this character with an open heart and an open mind. That is why Damien the Corgi is... So my dog is my literal best friend. I'm desperate to get off of this broadcast so I can go walk Bucky. Buck is my favorite creature on the planet. He knows all of my secrets. And I think Bucky would be very bestest friends with Dame the Corgi. I've never been so fulfilled by a stupid, unnecessary backup story in my entire life. If I loved Sinister Sons, I love this even better for being the... was there I guess the Crow to Johnny the Homicidal Maniac that Sinister Sons is.
Wow, I like that as a parallel. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a ton of fun with this. I know enough to know that John and Damien are present in the world, and I mean, I had read John the issue previous in Absolute Power 3, so I know he's around. I know Damien is around. So I wasn't really sure if I was getting, if this was a character that like is equally present and I just haven't seen. So, and this is something that appears to be happening with DC a lot, which is just like a lot of stories that come out that don't really tell you where they are, where they're situated in continuity.
They almost seem like they're situated in their own suspended continuity. Like, oh, if today had a future that had no changes, this would be that story. Just accept it and run.
Right. And that's very fun. I think they maybe for new readers need to work a little more to make some stuff clear, but it's, I find, and this might really be a me thing more than anybody else. It might be the fact that I do it for the show. I do it so that you and I can talk about the books and because I want to have fun with it, not because I'm like desperately trying to get into DC. But like, it doesn't, I really like, I am like a dog. I am like Damien the Corgi. I don't really know what's happening. I'm just kind of, Nico's got the leash. I'm going where I'm told. I'm just happy to be here. So yeah, I did not really know quite who this character was, but it's also very obvious that she is Kid Wonder Woman, and we're looking at Kid Batman and Kid Superman. And that's it. That's all you need. That's all you need for fun. That's all you need for, little things like, because they are all the children of superheroes, when they try and get Lizzie to go to bed, they tell her fables about, the super heroics of their parents, and she becomes scared of Darkseid and math. Yeah, it's just so adorable. There's no math in the closet. It's just so adorable, and to get to see them grow up. My one ding, I know Talia raised Damien with a better fashion sense than that bat suit that he winds up in once they go into space.
Hold on. Yes, the bat suit in space, but it is canon. In the Morrison run, there is a future where Damien has sold his soul to protect Gotham, and he wears a very stupid bat suit, and it's that. And it's fine. 2007 was a really hard time for all of us. We were all really pro The Office. We didn't know yet. It wasn't our fault. But I don't know. I had such a good time with this book. It felt like whatever Days of Future Past's really friendly cousin is.
Yeah, I get that.
It told the past, it told the present, it told the future.
Yeah, it imagined a world that was not at all without conflict and wasn't going to be dark, but it also didn't take you right to the darkest part of the world. And it imagined a thing that we do get to see, like even in something like Absolute Power, that we see moments of levity. We see Hal without his shirt on running around the island, just being a little silly pants. And it's really not a great time in the situation. Like, people are not happy, but Hal's being a little goofball. Like, goofball stuff is happening. And so to have a whole book where, the kids are being goofballs and they're being best friends and they're being siblings, but there also is a bit of an establishment in the background that, like, the world is still turning. They are being goofballs with each other because they are siblings, but then they're also being superheroes and they're going into particularly dark situations. And again, within that there are punchlines being had, and there are kind of little pratfalls and tricks and everything. But I don't know, this was very smart and very fun and very true to comics and very true to the characterization of characters. And I had a ton of fun with it.
One of the things that I thought was so, I guess, exciting, but I don't really mean exciting. It's hard to find the word. I wanted to keep turning the page on my DC books this week. On my Marvel books this week, I maybe felt like I kind of had to keep turning the page to know what was coming based on what I knew. But I was excited about my DC books. It's not that I wasn't happy about my Marvel books. My Marvel books showed a mastery of form, content, and understanding of storytelling that shows me that these creators are crafting stories that, even if they're not for me, they are for the Marvel fan. There's just so many Marvel fans at this point. I happen to be lucky that we're in an era of DC that is about the era of DC that I am a fan of. So for me, perhaps DC was a little bit more successful this week than Marvel, but I know that even though my thoughts on this issue of Exceptional X-Men were less than exceptional, I know that issue 2 is going to be something I pick up. We're going to talk about on here. I'm going to say the positives that I found about it, and I'm going to be really excited about the future of the title. How about you, TK?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a blast with DC right now. I'm really I'm trying to really examine how much of this is just fatigue with one of the big two and like the newness of the other one of the big two. But I'm having a bunch of fun with the DC books, and that really just has not stopped. With the Marvel stuff, I don't think we are in my favorite era at all. But the thing is, like, I just really do remember some of the years that I really did not like where the X-Men were, where I really didn't like where the Avengers were, and we'll get out of it. This stuff is always changing. It really just takes one announcement. I didn't really like where we were before Krakoa started. And then Krakoa started, and there was a ton of stuff I liked. And so it really just kind of takes one announcement of like a big shift that's really fun. If Daredevil got a new writer and like a new really big status quo, and I loved that writer.
Erica Schultz, Daredevils, just saying.
I mean, yes, but the only reason I don't want that is because I want 2 Daredevil books. So like if we got a Daredevil book and a Daredevils book or something like, then I'd be like, yeah, we're in the really cool era of like 2 Daredevil books. So like it doesn't take a lot to get there. So I'm trying really hard to not be like, this is the worst. I'm miserable all the time and I hate reading Marvel. It is not that, but I'm not super compelled right now. And, that's just kind of got to be how it is. I'm still in it. I still love all these characters. I still love so many of these creators too. And like, even it's such a weird thing to have the meta status quo and continuity area where I'm like, I feel generally like things aren't being shepherded in a direction I like, and I don't enjoy that. But within
you
that,
feel it's more of an Amelia than a Derek.
I mean, it's still intact. So,
activist.
What do we want? Comics. When do we want them? Now.
Like Jason Lowe writing Werewolf by Night and writing Dazzler, Alyssa Wong writing Conan, Eve Ewing writing Exceptional X-Men. Like, I'm stoked about these creators. So there's still stuff to like, and there's still stuff to have fun with. I'm just kind of waiting for the comprehensive era where everything is fun to me in the way that everything at DC feels like a lot of fun right now. And I think we'll get there. I mean, it's cyclical. Everything changes, and I do think we will get there.
I feel pretty much the same way. I think at some point we're going to find ourselves kind of like, oh man, I hate what they've done with DC. All in, the first year was great, but man, this second year is super lost, all out for us. But wow, can you guys believe this really exciting new direction on X-Men? And, it's just a matter of time. One of the things that I think is also important to remember is that so much of what these comic companies do is based on a projection done 3, 5, and 7 years out. They update it over and over again, but sometimes they're just on a collision course with a bad concept from the start. And they do what they can, but it's a tough road. And I think the decision to back off of Krakoa was made perhaps prematurely, but also a little too late. And so we find ourselves in a period of time where Marvel is going to lick their wounds and also think really carefully about the stories they're going to tell going forward. And until they enter as brave an era of storytelling as DC has entered, I look forward to supporting them, supporting their best titles, and also being openly honest and critical of the titles that don't wow me. And that's what we have this show for every Wednesday. So you can always check it out here at X is for Show and X is for Podcast on all your socials. But Kevo, you have been producer extraordinaire. You would be supreme producer in the Marvel Universe. That is, of course, the magical title I have just invented in the honor of Sorcerer Supreme and TK and I's Financier Supreme.
I like it. I'm on board. I'm your production commander, and you can find me at Kevo, really. This was a fun show. You guys have a lot of fun, interesting things to say. I am very fascinated by this new Ultimate Universe, so I appreciate the catch-up on it.
And if you want to jump in on this new Ultimate Universe, it's 5, 20, 24... At this point, you can literally jump in reading every single word of this new Ultimate Universe at 30 issues. So
nice.
It is literally still very, very accessible to people who, I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm literally saying less than 700 pages of
You also
issues.
can pick and choose. Read the first
Yeah.
issue of each. If something doesn't compel you, that you are fine to not read it. If you are not loving Ultimate X-Men and you are just kind of like I just want to follow one adult man trying to have it all in the city with his children and his 2 not gay uncles that spend a suspicious amount of time together. If that's your jam, that's Spider-Man, and you can just read that, and that's like 8 issues now, so that's nothing.
I think that's something that people need to take a lot more into consideration with franchises these days, which is that not every single project is going to necessarily be your bag, and you don't always need to read every single part of it. If you didn't want to watch The Acolyte, you don't need it for the next Star Wars thing coming up. You would have been fine. It's true of a lot of Marvel projects as well. So yeah, exactly. Just if you're interested a little bit, you could maybe find your way in through Spider-Man. Maybe you'll pick up more, maybe you won't. But, a lot of what's great about these franchises and these titles is that you can just, read a little and not have to read a lot.
And I think that's even part of what we're talking about with this bigger picture of the new way to read comics. Whether you're reading all of the books in Ultimate Marvel or you're reading just a handful of them and wikiing the rest, you can wiki the rest now. Like, that is literally something you can do. Back in the day, you had to hang out at your comic book shop and hope that you had a friend named Wiki who could give you the answers. Not the same. But the thing that I am most excited about is that there are worlds of only 30 issues that people like Kevo can jump in on, but that there are still unbelievable worlds of 27,000 issues that people can jump in on, like TK and I, who are always hungry for more DC and more Marvel. I myself do have the Premier subscription to the Marvel app and the DC app. I pay the annual subscription, so they'll send me the cool variant covers and the action figures. And the reason that's important to me is because I want to support these things. I want to make sure that I am part of the future of DC. I am part of the future of Marvel. And I understand why Dark Horse and Image would have a much harder time, and that's more a Comixology Originals thing, where you can check out amazing books like The Pride. But I love both of these companies. We spent a really long time acting like this show brand company culture was just Marvel based, but obviously my DC love runs deep, runs weird, and runs kind of airwave. So I'm excited about the future of all of this, and I'm so grateful that the two of you are in on this journey with me. TK, any final thoughts before we sign off, and where can we find you? Try again for me.
I really don't think I have any final thoughts. I think at the end of the day, it just like my big discovery has been how possible it is to dive into a lot of this stuff, and I've had a lot of fun doing it with Absolute Power. I do think it's really possible to do with Ultimates. Now is tough time to recommend diving into the X-Men in terms of loving the stories, but also everything's at issue like 1 or 2. So like if you really gotta now you could, but like I don't know, as frustrating as this medium can be, don't give up on it yet. And you can find me at TK Elemental. Nico, how about you?
Honestly, any final thoughts I have, it's that there is never a reason to resist a book unless you have a resistance to the creator, a resistance to the characters. If you come to a book and you know nothing about it, just crack it open. I had no idea about what was going to be inside Trinity, but I knew that it was listed on a couple of Damien sites as like, this is a book that's going to have Damien in it per the preview. So I wanted to check it out, and I'm walking away a humongous fan of Trinity. This has been a great week for John. Had to come out and rep my Superboy, and really excited about it. And I love being a comic fan. And if you want to check me out at Nico Action, NICOACTION. I'm probably just saying nonsense or flexing, but if you want to hear the beautiful sounds that come out of my computer, check out Nico Action Music, NICOACTIONMUSIC. Of course, you can check out all of the feeds of this show at X's for podcast and X's for show. Also, though, if I can be real, I kind of need you guys to do 3 things for me and 3 things for you. 3 things for all of us, not just me. Like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how metrics work. It's crazy. But 3 things you guys can do for yourselves that you maybe didn't think about. Number 1, I would love it if you guys could stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. We're entering fall spooky season. Be on the lookout for us doing some spooky comics, because I do love me a good horror comic. But number 2, you can be brave, because just like these superheroes, you are amazing. But number 3, you can evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, we love it. Who you are today, unbelievable. But who you are tomorrow, that's the dream. We are here to support that, and we can't wait. So until next time, we will see you guys.